Let's talk about thread stands. You may be wondering what these are. Do you need one for your embroidery machine? Are they worth the money? And I'm going to tell you all of that, plus a few things that people do, mistakes that are made that make these not worth the money. And if you fix those mistakes, they are totally worth the money. Hey folks, I'm Lucy at Ballyhoo Creations, where I make dolls, puppets, and plushies that you make in the hoop, plus some sewing patterns. And I've been doing machine embroidery for a long time, and one thing that made a huge difference, like took a frustrating hobby and turned it into, oh, this is not so bad. It was a thread stand. It was this thread stand that I bought with my own money several years ago, and you can get these on Amazon. This holds 20 spools. You can also buy ones that just hold one spool. I'm going to put up some pictures of things that you can see what I'm talking about. But these don't cost that much money. I want to say in the $30 to $40 range for the larger one that holds the 20 spools. There are a couple of different brands out there. They look exactly the same. I can't tell the difference, so I'm not going to tell you which brand you should go buy. But I do think that this is a wonderful thing because it changed my embroidery, and a lot of other people say the same thing. I've seen some mistakes that people make, and I'm going to show you how to not make those mistakes and make this thread stand actually make your embroidery a lot more trouble-free and a lot smoother. One of the most important things about your thread stand is where to put it. It needs to go behind your embroidery machine, and you can have it a little bit to the right or right behind it. It doesn't really matter, but somewhere in that area. If you have it farther away, you're going to have a lot of problems. I like to keep mine just what you see here. This is the corner of my embroidery machine, and it's just behind it and to the right. This one here, and most of them, they have a telescoping top like this, and you do want to raise that top up high, but I need to have it down low so that it's actually in the video. But when you're doing this, you want to have this as high as it goes, and I'll tell you about that in a second. This particular one, again, it has 20 different pegs, and they do come out. It comes with these little things, and I don't see much point in them, except I've noticed that when you put them on upside down like this, it's better for having small spools like this so that it can come off the top and not get stuck around the little peg here. So that's an option if you have these little things here. It also comes with different little spool caps and stuff that will go on the top. You don't really need the spool cap when your thread is coming off of the top. Sorry, this is a light colored thread, so it might be hard to see, but when your thread's coming off the top, which it will on most of these thread stands, you're going to be coming off the top like that, and you don't need that spool cap because there's nothing on the top of the cone here. If you have a spool like this where the thread might get caught on that little lip, then you might want to put a spool cap, but typically if it's pulling up like this, then there's another problem. So what you'd want to actually do is just make sure that the thread is going to come off the top easily. If you have, and I've talked about this before, this is a cross-wound spool. You can see some diagonal lines where the thread is loaded onto the spool in a cross-wound fashion. And that means that the thread needs to come off the top. And you may be asking, which is the top, which is the bottom? It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. This isn't a roll of toilet paper over and under. It's going to come off either this direction or turn it upside down. That's still the top, whatever the top is. If you have what's called a stack wound spool, where these are parallel wound instead of cross wound, it needs to come off like toilet paper. And again, over under is not as big a deal as just the fact that it needs to come off sideways and not off the top, because this can definitely get stuck on the top or bottom of that spool. So for this one, you need to have the little attachment, and this comes with the thread stand. You just put it on a little peg there, put your thread on, and this way your thread will come off properly. And in this case, you will need to probably put the little cap on there so that it doesn't fly off. But you see how that works. And then, you know, you can just, like a cat taking toilet paper off the roll, you can just do that all day. So if you have the stack wound that's sideways, you need to have that coming up to the top. And this is very important. Where you put it in these channels here, it needs to be over that spool. So that's why this telescoping thing moves around. That needs to be over the spool while you're stitching, and you need to get it as much over it as you can, because if you have it at an angle, if this thread is too much of an angle, it's going to get stuck and cause problems. So make sure that you rotate this. For example, this spool that's way down here, it's going to come off the top, and I want it to be all the way out here. So pull that thread straight up. Hopefully you can see that. Yep. And that's going to be good, and that's right over the top. I could even move it over one. So you really want that thread to be as much like straight up and down over the top of that spool as you can. If you have it over here, you see how as I pull on that thread, it can get stuck on the spool if we're doing this. So we want to make sure that it's definitely as much, you know, over the top. Even back here, it's too much of an angle and you can get stuck on your spool. Things like that. You don't want that to happen. So always make sure that you're using the top slot that corresponds. Again, you have these little clips here where you can actually put the thread through a little hole, and that works well for these stack wound too. Technically, with this stack wound on, I would want to run this through the little hole, and bear with me, speed up through this, because there we go, it went right in. Okay, and see how that's right over? And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want for this stack wound. And then the cross wound, you'd want to do something like that. I've got some pink thread loaded up, and let's see what happens when we take it to the machine. It's going to go straight up. Remember, we want it to come straight off the top, and then at the machine, it's loaded up on the thread stand. It's going right up over the top. It's coming all the way over here, and then over at the machine, you cannot skip any of the thread guide places for your machine. A lot of people try that. They're like, oh, I have the thread stand, so then you just take it straight to the needle down here. Oh my gosh, what a huge problem you're going to have if you try that. Your thread still has to go through all the thread guides. Over here to the tension disc, it has to always go in the take-up lever, which is here. Never ever skip your tension disc or your take-up lever. Make sure it still goes through the needle bar and the needle. So all of that has to happen. And you may notice that I have little clips up here. You don't have to have these, but I like having these little guides that I've just stuck on there. These are just, you can use the Command Performance little clips or Dollar Tree little clips. These are removable little hooks and they're sticky, and so I just put them on, and that way my thread doesn't get caught over in the flywheel over here. It doesn't get caught in any of the moving parts. So I like to have that, and it's just going right through there, and it goes across where the thread would normally sit and straight into the first thread guide. So instead of having a spool here, we have these guides and it's sitting back here. Okay, this is huge because this is the reason why a thread stand makes your embroidery so much better. Because having that distance from the spool all the way to the machine helps that thread unkink and unwind and relax, so that by the time it gets through your tension disc and the rest of the machine, it's not got little loops in it or little twists in it, which can definitely cause problems later on when you're stitching. These thread stands might seem like a handy place to just store your thread or to line them up when you're doing a bunch of colors, and they work for that. They're great for that. Definitely worth the money just for that. But the real advantage is the machines like the one that I'm using here. This is an old Viking, or if you have the the Brother machines, the lower end, more entry level. If your machine costs less than around $1,000, maybe $2,000–$3,000 even, the spool of thread that would normally sit here is just too close to this first thread guide. And sometimes when the thread comes off of a spool sitting here, it'll have little loops and twists in it, which can get into your tension disc and jam up, and then you get a loop through the needle, and then it creates a bird nest underneath and all kinds of problems, which is why the thread stand fixes a lot of issues. It doesn't seem to make sense, but once you start using it, you'll see that this thread stand can make a huge difference in machine embroidery. Like I said, it was a game changer for me. Very much worth the $35 that I paid for it years ago. I would always use this with a machine like this. Some machines have a thread stand built in. Some of the machines have a spool that's sitting back here and it has the telescoping arm that comes up, and you don't need a separate thread stand when you have that on a machine. More expensive machines tend to have that, but you might still want to have, like, this holds 20 different spools, so you can just line up all your colors and go, okay, here's color 1, here's color 2, here's color 3, and so it's convenient for that as well. But the real advantage is how it takes that longer length of thread and makes it relax and unkink so that it will go more smoothly through your machine. I'm just saying, me and thousands of other people are like, oh my gosh, why didn't I buy one of these immediately? Just spend the extra money on that thread stand and that machine will work so much better. It's amazing what a game changer it is. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's in action, and I've just got some stitching going on down here, and my thread is still going all the way through. Take up lever, tension disc through this thread guide, and you see how it's just getting pulled from here. It's coming straight off the top, so it's not getting stuck on the spool back here. And this nice long length is giving us plenty of room for the thread to relax and not have loops coming in at this point. It's wonderful. All right, that's all I have about thread stands. I love mine. Like I said, I got mine on Amazon. There are a couple of different brands of that exact same thread stand. They look like they're made at the same factory and they slap a different brand name on them. And then you can also get, there's different ones out there. You can get ones that just hold one spool. You can get ones that hold more. I have not noticed a difference in quality. Yeah, it's a piece of white plastic, but for what it's doing, which is just holding threads, it doesn't need to be sturdy. As long as you're not like playing soccer with it, it doesn't matter. So don't spend your money on a super expensive one because it doesn't matter. Whereas when I was reviewing the bobbin winders, I was saying, you know, it's worth it to get a little nicer one. But with a thread stand that's just holding thread and changing your thread path, save your money on that. Get the least expensive one you can because that's a good place to cut corners and still just change your embroidery forever. Great thing to have. What else did I want to say about thread stands? I think I'm done. I don't know. If you have questions about thread stands, if yours is not working right for you, if you're trying to figure out what the problem is, go ahead and leave a comment or a question. If you have used a thread stand and you're like me, like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I using this from the from the very beginning, if you love them like I love them, leave a comment because I really kind of want to get the word out and let people know that thread stands are amazing. They're one of the things that when I'm talking to beginners, I'm like, yeah, get whatever machine you want. But if you're getting a cheaper machine, buy a thread stand. It's kind of not an option. It's a required accessory because like I talked about, the thread path is just too short and you'll have problems. If you have a more expensive machine, they have longer, between the spool and the thread guide, it's further apart. It's a different thing. Like on a multi-needle, they've got a built-in thread stand. So you don't need a separate thread stand for that. It's kind of silly for a machine like that. But for the machine that I just showed you, the single needle, that thread stand, huge game changer. So if you love yours too, leave a comment. If you have questions about it, leave a comment and let me hear from you. Unlike most of my videos, this one was not scripted, so I kind of said the same thing over and over like a crazy weirdo, but I don't know, I kind of like that, so let me know what you think.